right? Now, cap and trade is dead, okay, at least politically, at least for the moment, okay? And cap and trade was never really a cap and trade system. I mean, as soon as it was introduced in Congress, cap and trade was basically dead in the sense that they weren't going to do what cap and trade was supposed to be done, which is a permitting process, okay? So cap and trade is dead, but what the EPA has done is they have introduced a permitting process on their own, okay, outside of Congress, okay? And it's the tailoring rule. In other words, they're tailoring their response, okay? And ramping up regulations against greenhouse gas emissions. One of them is a permitting rule. So here's what they're going to be trying to do. Year one, let's say that, you know, this 2011 is the first year for the permitting process, okay? So we're producing a certain amount of CO2, and each balloon should be about the same amount, at least for now. So in 2012, 2013, we wouldn't be producing any more CO2, all right? That's the idea behind the permitting process, and that would have been the idea behind cap and trade too, as far as that goes, is to limit, okay? This is the coast theorem. This is about assigning rights to emissions, okay? And that's one of those barrels pointed at, you know, all these industrial, okay, places. Now think about this for a minute. They don't have nearly enough people to go through all these permits. I mean, this is a gigantic thing that the EPA has taken on, this permitting process. So they have until the end of the year to okay all these permits. Now what should happen is, or what I think they're trying to do, and nobody really knows for sure where the permitting process is going. It's sort of up in the air for the time being. I don't think the EPA even knows where this is all going, but I think I know where they want it to go, okay? Where they want it to go is, it's costing more and more money through the permitting process to produce electricity using fossil fuels, especially coal, okay? So what they want to happen through any permitting process like that is, what they want is for successive years for greenhouse gas emissions to go down. So go ahead and let a little bit of air out of your two balloons. That's what they want to happen. Now, what a lot of people think is going to happen, and again, this is conjecture, but if you want to build a new coal plant in the future, do you suppose it might be difficult to get it permitted to be able to produce the CO2? I think it will be. I think it might be next to impossible. And that's hard to say for sure, okay? Again, that's conjecture. It's opinion on my part and some other people's part as far as that goes. But that's the idea behind the permitting process, and that's what cap and trade would have done. Now I know I'm not supposed to mention cap and trade because it's politically dead, but you see that's how that kind of ties together in a sense, okay? But that's the permitting process, okay? Now, all the while, now other speakers have mentioned this too, especially I think Dan mentioned it earlier, I think Mike made some mention of it, is as we as industrial countries, as we are instituting these different processes to reduce CO2 emissions, okay, what's happening with China, India, the third world? What's happening with their emissions of CO2? So go ahead and start blowing up your 3 balloons. And of course, consumers are probably producing more CO2 because there's more and more consumers in the world, so go ahead and blow up your balloon.
Good pictures.
So all the while, we are reducing our CO2 emissions. What's happening to cost of production in places like the United States and Europe, Canada? Cost of production is doing what? It's going up. So guess what happens? They are now keep in mind that the third world, China, India, and so on, they're increasing everything, okay? I mean, they are increasing green power, but they're also increasing coal as well. According to somebody, a coal industry expert who was on Mad Money here about a month ago, he said that China alone is adding about 1 new coal plant a month, roughly on average. Can you imagine? So they are dramatically increasing their CO2 production. So as we increase costs with the regulation that's coming in, you know, their cost of production really aren't going up all that much. Now they are going up some because of inflation. But our costs of production are going up increasingly faster than theirs would be. Okay? So guess what happens? What happens to jobs in the US compared to jobs in China and India? Our costs of production are going up faster. And so guess what happens with jobs in the US? They get shipped overseas. You know, so that is an economic impact of the regulation. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it by any means. Maybe we should be the leader in the world, you know, reducing these emissions. I don't know. That's up to you to decide personally. But that is the effect. The effect is to ship our jobs overseas and so on because of these increasing costs.